Okay. Dear Heavenly Father, Lord, we thank you for getting us through this week. We thank you for being by our side, and we thank you for continuing to help us get stronger in our walk with you. We ask that you help us understand the messages of this evening in this Bible study. We're going to be dealing with a theme of information that Sister Tess has been trying really hard to help people understand, and Parminder also. Please help our minds be able to grapple with these difficult concepts, Lord. Help us to be able to understand so that we can use our lines more efficiently and understand them better. We ask that you be with us as Sabbath is coming also, and we ask that you take us through the Sabbath, and we ask for a huge blessing tomorrow in our studies as well, and continue to be with us every step of the way. In Jesus' name I pray, amen.
Amen.
Okay. So let me do the share screens here. All right, can everyone see that? I'm going to assume yes, because everyone...
Yes.
Okay, cool. All right. So
Yes.
this is Sister Tessa's presentation, part 10, and I'm going to go back to the part 9 presentation, and we're going to look at the two parables again, because this is an important point that they're trying to make, and it can be kind of difficult because she keeps going back between Antigonus and Seleucus and Demetrius and Pyrrhus and Ptolemy, and it seems like she stuck all those things in a pot and she just keeps stirring them around, and you look at it and you just get dizzy. But she's doing something really important with these things. And Sister Elaine sent out a video that I was watching the other night with Parminder explaining how it's really important that we understand these concepts and how we can use them in the limitations and not getting out of hand, but also really trying to wrap your mind around two perspectives of the same object and how it gives different information. So we had this parable, we went over this, and what we saw here is that both of these stories are talking about farming, right? They're both talking about farming. The focus in this story is the fact that there are these plants that grow and an enemy came in and sowed tares. But to save the wheat, God won't pluck up the tares because he wants to save the wheat. And it's at the harvest where they're going to get separated, where it's easy to tell which one is which. Because you have to wait until the harvest to be able to tell clearly. Right? That's why the servant said, "My Lord, can we tear up the tares?" And he said, "No, lest you take up some of the wheat, because it's not completely clear which one is a wheat and which one is a tare when they're young." So he said, "No, wait, and then we'll bind the wheat and put it in my barn, and the tares will be bound and burned." So the focus of this is you have a protagonist, which is God, which is the farmer, and you have an enemy that comes in. So you have an antagonist, and then you have this victim here, the wheat or the field. The field is the victim, okay? And then something bad happens to it, and God tries to protect and to save it. So you have to see that there's two different items in the field that's causing a problem, and that fact that there's an enemy. That's the whole moral of this story, right? Then you have the same story over here, and you're not focusing on the wheat and the tares here. You're not even thinking about the enemy at this time. The focus on this story is the people, the farmers, the human being. When they sow seed, it can also be likened to how the gospel spreads, right? And the point of this story is that it may be a strange thing to you. You give someone an idea, you say something that you didn't even realize stuck in their minds about God, and somehow it grows and it turns them into a Christian one day, and you can't even tell how that happens. You have no idea how that seed grows. You have no idea how it takes root. You have no idea how this whole plant grows or this human being in spirituality. It's God's work. The person doesn't know, but it's a beautiful thing, right? So this is a different perspective, right, of this same type of story. So you can combine these two and layer them on top of each other, and you get a really well-rounded idea of what farming is all about, right? Farming is about this amazing process of growth that only God knows how it works. But then you go over here and it's also sometimes bad things can happen, but God is always taking care of it. So you get, with these two stories together, a much fuller understanding of what this one type of issue is, right? If that makes sense. Let's see here. I hope I explained that clearly, because we're going to go into the Ipsus battles, and that one it gets a little interesting. So it depends on what you're focusing on. I don't know if any of you guys like art or have ever studied painting or art or anything, but you have usually 3 steps. Where am I? Let's go over here. So let's say you have a canvas, right? And you can categorize painting into these 3 steps. Step 1, you put midtones on the canvas. So let's say you're drawing a very horrible tree, like I am, and you have, I don't know, some mountains, and you just put some really, I don't even know, some just really, we'll just do that. Basic, let's just keep it 2D like that. It's a really basic, right? And then in step 2, you kind of need some, let's just make this a little gray. Let's make this a little gray. Let's just make everything kind of gray. So you have the basic mid-tones. They're just like the boring blocks of color that's like a really regular neutral color, right? And then in step 2, you have that tree. It gets worse and worse as the story progresses here. And everything is all like gray and not light. There's no life in it. It doesn't mean it's wrong. The information, the basic information is there. It's not wrong or anything. But to make it look more realistic, you're going to go over here and do this, and you're going to add some shadows, right? You're going to add some shadows to the mountain here and over here. And now you have a better picture. And here, I'm just going to not add the gray stuff in here in some areas to portray highlights. So you have gray like we did in the first picture. But we're going to leave some out to keep highlights here. And then this is all gray, but we're only going to put it to some parts so we can see that there's also some highlights. So we're going to have this right here. And now we're going to put in our shadow. So some areas that are even darker. Right? And now you have even more detail. So the picture gets better and better the more layers that you add onto it. All the layers are correct. They're all in the correct spot. But here, when you just have one layer, it's a very basic picture, and it has not as much information as step 2. And step 2 doesn't have as much information as step 3. So the more information you layer on there in different steps, the more well-rounded of a picture you get, right? So I hope that made sense to everyone. Let's keep reading here. So now we want to go, if you understand that, we're going to go look at Daniel, because that's what he kind of does, is he has his perspective that he's looking at this story with. Daniel's model. So you have this model. Daniel goes from cause to effect. And his focus is on when the story goes to a point where the kingdom will never be reunited, right? You have this horn here, and we talked about this last time. You have this horn. It's broken. This is Alexander the Great. And his job, if you guys remember, was to bring together East and West of the empire. This was his great work. And he just about accomplished that, right? And then he died. There was this last-ditch effort of Antigonus to try to do that, but he couldn't succeed. It was like he tried and he tried and it just didn't go out. So basically what happened is this is where it worked, and then when this stops working, eventually what the effect of this not working is going to be is that it's going to be split up forever into four directions. It's never going to be reunited again. So this happened the best when Alexander died, and then this had its best fulfillment when the four horns came in. So you're looking at the cause over here, and you're looking at the effect. So the cause is Alexander died, and the effect of that was that the kingdom would never be able to be reunited again. And the only time you see that clearly, that the kingdom will never be reunited again, is when you have these four horns. Because in this 22-year period, Antigonus is still trying to make it happen and reunite the kingdom again, but it doesn't work. It's just like a weaker effort than Alexander had. So this is how you reason from cause to effect. And so that's why you have Daniel looking at these 22 years like they're noise, right? It's just basically like a waiting period, just waiting until it gets to this point. Because this period of time, because we know prophecy is what it is, if prophecy said this horn is going to be broken and then this is going to be dispersed to the four winds, you know Antigonus isn't going to win. You know that's not how it was going to work. So you're just waiting until those four horns come in. And so that's what you point out, is when it's now finally never going to be reunited again. So where was I? So Daniel goes from cause to effect. So then we can go to our Ipsus perspective. Let's see where our Ipsus perspective was. Let's go back to the...
Chrissy.
Hello?
Okay.
I think someone needs to mute. Debbie, yes, Antigonus. It's Antigonus's vain attempts. Yep, he tried, but he failed. He couldn't swing it. It didn't work. So, I made kind of a mess of this last time, is what I did. So we'll use this, and we'll zoom out. So we have this story of Ipsus that we were looking at. Here we have Clinton and Antigonus and Trump as Demetrius, right? This is the perspective of Ipsus we've been getting really familiar with. So it's the perspective of the actual literal battle of Ipsus. And it's the perspective where you have Antigonus as Clinton, and you have Demetrius as the king of the north. And then the ally of Demetrius is Pyrrhus, okay? And so Pyrrhus is the king of the south. And then you see these three branches of government, right? That's what we're calling them. And there's also information warfare here. Seleucus jumps in at the last minute, and the elephants end up breaking Antigonus and Demetrius apart, and Antigonus dies. So what the point of this story is showing is that Antigonus and Demetrius aren't fighting each other. They're fighting these three allies. They have nothing the other wants. Antigonus doesn't have anything Demetrius wants. Demetrius doesn't have anything Antigonus wants. They're both, at this point, technically kings in their own right. Demetrius is almost as strong as Antigonus. And so they're not like jealous of each other. They're just two really strong generals. They're smart. I guess it runs in the family. I don't know. But they don't have anything the other wants in this literal story. And in the parable, we're matching it up to our time. It's the same thing. Hillary doesn't have anything Trump wants. Trump doesn't have anything Hillary wants. So let's see. In this battle, Demetrius has Pyrrhus for an ally. Here, Antigonus went into battle with one eye. That's the other thing we see. We see Antigonus go into this battle with one eye that he lost in a prior battle, and he loses the other eye in this battle when he dies. So let's just let's do that. Let's list all the things we can glean from setting this parable up to teach us about our time, because this is what's going to be important. So from this parable, some things we can see here. Let's see. Because this helped me in thinking it out and trying to figure out how it works. It helped me out a lot. Let's see if I can do this in a way that doesn't look super messy. So the things that we see is Antigonus is the ancestor or like the ancestor, and that equals Clinton, which equals, let's say, founders, George Washington. Okay. What else? Antigonus has one eye. What else do we see? We see that Demetrius is Trump. We see Antigonus and Demetrius aren't fighting each other. Okay. And then Demetrius and Demeter. So I'm going to put Demeter. That's not how you spell it. Oh, wait, I have this. I forgot. Okay. Demeter. Harvest, which is also Trump because Trump is Demetrius. What else do we see? So we see that they're fighting allies. They're fighting 3 allies, right? Demetrius has Pyrrhus for an ally. So and we learned that Antigonus and Pyrrhus are, no, it's Antigonus and Demetrius are split by elephants, and they represent information warfare. So elephants kill Antigonus. And we learned that Pyrrhus is flame red and he's Putin. And we see that the 3 allies are 3 branches. Is there anything I'm missing here? I think that's everything that we see from here. So we see the name meaning of Antigonus, we see the meaning of Demetrius, and we see the meaning of Pyrrhus, and they all correspond. Another thing that I thought was interesting, and I think it's important to note this because it is a perspective that this is showing. I can be wrong on this. I haven't seen Sister Tess talk about it. I kind of want to ask her about it though, but I don't know. In this perspective, Seleucus is here with the 3 branches of governments. And Seleucus shows up and right towards the end of the battle with his 400 to 500 elephants. And they're the ones that decide the battle, right? So it comes out of the government, this last minute elephant information warfare that comes in and destroys Hillary. And if you guys remember, I had to look it up because I have vague memories, but I can't find the sources that I need anymore. Whenever I look at Trump or Clinton or anything, everything is bogged down with new tweets or something else Trump is doing nowadays. So it's hard to find what was happening back in that history. But I did find Comey before the Congress. He got asked why on October 28, 11 days before November 9, he released a statement saying that they found a new computer with Hillary emails and they're going to investigate it. So let's just say he resurrects the email scandal. And the congresswoman is asking him, saying, you had an option to not say this in front of everyone, and you know that part of your job is to not do anything if you can help it, if you think it's going to influence the election. And he said that I had a really hard time making this decision, and I thought that concealing it would be more catastrophic because I've been telling you guys that the investigations are over and they're done and they're over, and I thought that would be worse. And I talked to my team, and it was a horrible decision. I knew this could influence the election, but we had to make a statement and we had to do it. So you had him releasing that statement, and it could have influenced the election, which all the information warfare could have in that time. And I'm sure, I can't remember right now off the top of my mind, but I'm sure Trump would have used that. And what happened is they didn't find any emails. They found the emails from the 3 months before that they couldn't ever find before, but there was nothing there to link her to anything bad or anything crazy. So all it did was just stir the pot against her and in favor of Trump. So for me, from this perspective, I'm seeing an application with the intelligence agencies coming in at the last second, whether they knew they were doing it or not. I feel like they did influence that whole situation there. So let's see here. But so now we have all these things that we found out. And so what's the story that this tells us? Where did I write it? Okay, every single perspective does not give the full story. So the point is that every single perspective doesn't give the full story. That's another thing. So if you want to see Pyrrhus being the one with the information warfare, this model doesn't show you that. This model doesn't show elephants with Pyrrhus, right? They weren't here in this battle. This was not a part of this battle. So this is why you have to look at multiple perspectives, because it's the perspective of the Omega history of Pyrrhus versus Rome, where you see the elephants come in and how elephant warfare battles happened. So that's where you see Pyrrhus using elephants for warfare. And that's the history you have to go to. And that's why you have to layer it on top of this one to get a more well-rounded story. So we have to have multiple battles. And then the other, I don't know if anyone else procrastinated like me in their school childhood. What's it called? This is what we're doing. We have to go through so much history, and we have to learn the important parts of it that matter to us. So I used to procrastinate all the time in grade school with my book reports, and I would just try to search and find the Cliff Notes version, or just get the most important events and take them out and make my report based off of that. So that's kind of what we're doing with history. We're finding the most important events that we need that explain to us what's happening in our time, and we put them on lines for us to understand. And this is the technique that you use when you're running out of time and you have to rush to to get things organized and get ready to go. So, and that's where we are, kind of in a high-paced situation right now. So let's see if you look at this, what we figured out from this perspective, what is the story telling us? If you were to just extract the points that we made in our time and just put Demetrius, Antigonus, these words of these generals from back in the day aside, and just focus on what we learned is happening in our time based off of this perspective, what you have going on is you see Trump and Hillary were not fighting each other, but the three branches of the government. Hillary wanted to protect the founding ideals of this country. She wanted to further the established ideas of this nation. Trump had an ally, and that is Putin. Trump is the final president that is going to bring in the never-ending harvest of our people. Trump won the executive branch, and let's see. Clinton and the establishment went into this election with the Protestant horn being broken back in 1800s in 1844, and the second horn of the republicanism falls in 2016. It is a progressive fall, though. So you get a lot of information for our time just from that one perspective, right? And then you have Seleucus comes in. Okay, James Comey. Okay, so now we're going to go look at what do you got? What is the midterm elections? What's going on there, you guys? Okay, we're gonna look, but no, we have to go back to this model. So, okay, let's go to, let's go back to cause and effect. So here's what happened. We're going to look at the history of Ipsus the way we were supposed to the moment we found out about Raphia and Panium, because we found out about those battles and we made some applications, but we never actually looked at why any of those battles were happening in the first place, right? So you have here the history we were just talking about. These are, where are we? Okay. These are the Diadochi Wars, and there's 4 of them spanning 22 years. You start in 323. Sorry, when Alexander died, and then you go to Ipsus. So if Daniel was able to go from cause to effect, and he skipped this entire history, why can't we do the same thing in our history? Why can't we also reason from cause to effect? This is the Syrian Wars from Daniel 11:4 to 15, but we're only looking at the first 4 wars because our model here that we're comparing it to is the 4 Diadochi Wars. And we're saying that there was an effect at Ipsus. Excuse me. So you had 6 Syrian wars, but Raphia was the 4th Syrian war. And what happened was that we never looked at is you have this area of Colosyria. So I had a map, I thought. Yeah, okay. Let's zoom in here. That's really blurry. Sorry. Okay, so you had Antigonus. This was his whole region here. And you had Seleucus. Seleucus is here. It's really blurry. Don't mind that. Lysimachus is over here. And Cassander, I'm pretty sure he's off over here somewhere. And then here's Ptolemy. And this whole region here that you see is the region of Antigonus. So these 4 come up. You have Lysimachus and Cassander are going to come and fight against Antigonus and Demetrius, right, in this battle. And then Seleucus, like we said, is going to come in at the last minute with his elephants. But what's important to note is that in this story, in the story of Daniel 11, verse 4 to 15, the king of the north isn't Demetrius. And the king of the north is actually Seleucus. In all of Daniel, that history there, Seleucus is the king of the north, and his children after him, after he dies, those are the king of the north because they occupy this area where Antigonus is right now. And Ptolemy is the king of the south. So the thing is, though, before this battle happened, Ptolemy actually had the area of Coele. This map doesn't show that, but Ptolemy had already had that area by the time that they went to war with Antigonus, the Fourth Diadochi War. So he had this area. Then Seleucus, Lysimachus, Cassander go to battle Antigonus, and Ptolemy does too, but he hears a false report and returns home to secure his own kingdom. And actually, it's not even that. He goes over here to Sidon to besiege Sidon. So Seleucus, Lysimachus, and Cassander, they destroy Antigonus and they win. And since they're there, they divide all his territories between themselves. And Seleucus now, he claims Coele for himself. Ptolemy doesn't like this, but because they're allies, he lets it go and he just lets it happen. And another thing that you see in this perspective of looking at it this way, with Seleucus being the king of the north and Ptolemy being the king of the south, another witness for that is that he is besieging Sidon. And Sidon, we saw in Acts 27, is the U.S. So you have Seleucus now takes the area of Coele. Ptolemy doesn't like it, but he lets it happen because he didn't go to the battle. So it's the rules of engagement, as it were, and the fact that they're allies, he can't really do anything, so it's fine. They let it go, but then they die, and their children don't let it go. And you have their sons fighting perpetually over 6 Syrian wars. So why did these 6 Syrian wars happen? They all happened because of the Battle of Ipsus. And we didn't look at that when we learned about Midnight and Midnight Cry. So let's look here. So you have here at Ipsus, our second perspective, you have Clinton equals Antigonus. Clinton is still Antigonus here. And Seleucus is Trump. Now this changes because it was Demetrius before, but now we have a change happening in the second perspective. You have Seleucus is now Trump. Before, Seleucus was one of the 3 branches of government, right? But from this side of the spectrum that we're looking at, Seleucus is the king of the north and Ptolemy is the king of the south, not Pyrrhus. And in this situation, you actually do have Trump and Clinton fighting each other. Before, they weren't fighting each other, they were fighting the 3 branches. But from this perspective, we're not looking at the 3 branches. Before, the whole point was Trump and Clinton in relation to the 3 branches, but now our perspective is Trump and Clinton in relation to each other. So because there was no one else for them to fight, they did have to fight each other. And now you have Trump bringing, in this perspective, it's him that he's using his information warfare. He is bringing the elephants against Clinton. So this is another perspective that we have, and it's teaching us different things. So what did we have here? Here you have, actually, it's Seleucus equals kingdom of the north. And here you have Ptolemy is the south. And here you have Seleucus with information war. And then here you have Clinton and Trump. That was where I don't know why I did that. Fighting each other. So this is the big difference here. And then here is another witness that the king of the south is still going up against the US because it's Sidon here, and he's besieging Sidon. And we know Russia is always besieging the US somehow in their ways that they do. Right? Does this make sense to everyone? Because this is kind of important. Does anyone have any questions right now? Is there any confusion? This is, while we're in it, is the time to dispel this, if anyone has any questions.
I just want to confirm, so, okay, so there's elephants in Ipsus, right? But
Yeah.
in the first perspective, you're saying the elephants didn't matter because they're not fighting against each other. And in the second perspective, it does matter because they are fighting against each other, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's how she laid it out. She didn't make the elephants a big focus of perspective 1, but here in perspective 2, they do come in.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. So yeah, see how things change, how from perspective to perspective, but now you have these layers coming in and the story is getting more and more full. We're populating our story with facts and different events and different nuances, right? Different facets and different nuances to the story. We're building it up. So if we, is there another question?
Did you mentioned, and I think I didn't quite grab it, the elephants that Trump used against, or not Trump, but I guess one of the branches of the U.S. government had against Hillary. What were those again? It was something about the emails or something.
That was a me idea. That's what I was thinking about. Because in that perspective, you have, if Seleucus is the one who shows up to the battle late, it's one of the, it shows up late and it does a damage with information warfare against Clinton. And that's what the intelligence agencies did during that time period before the election. So I was just wondering if that fits in there. So I want to ask her if yeah, so. But from this because see, in that perspective, Seleucus wasn't the king of the north. That's the whole point. In that perspective, Seleucus was a branch of government where this fighting took, and in that war, you did have information warfare being used because you had the elephants. And you have to bring the elephants into that battle, actually, because it is how Antigonus and Demetrius were split apart, and it is how Antigonus died. So I'm just wondering. And I didn't realize, but when I found out that it was October 28th that Comey did that, she actually talks about October 28th and certain dates that matter later on in the study, but it's for the year after. So I'm not sure. I'm gonna email her and ask her about it though, because this is growing. The other thing I don't want to ask her though is because I haven't seen the France videos yet, so I don't know if she goes and explains that more. I really need to find time to watch all those millions of videos.
So on this, you have Ptolemy up there as the king of the south. So is that representing a kingdom, the U.S., as Sidon?
Yeah. So Ptolemy is the king of the south, but he is besieging Sidon.
So it doesn't equal the U.S. He's besieging it.
Yeah. In Acts 27, we saw that Sidon is the U.S.
So is Ptolemy Putin?
Yes. Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Exactly, right. Because Putin is besieging the U.S. as any chance he gets, that's what he does. So, yeah. Okay. So what she was pointing out is that if we would have actually looked at the history of why Raphia and Panium happened in the first place and see Ipsus, if we would have seen Ipsus as being the cause of all those Syrian wars, if we would have seen how Ipsus caused everything and caused Raphia and Panium, you would have seen a few things immediately. You would have known that they were not trying to take down each other's territories from the even in this story, you're not trying to take down each other. No, in this one you are. Yeah. See, that's where it gets confusing. But in the first perspective, in that first battle of Ipsus, the way that it was with the three branches on one side and Antigonus and Demetrius on the other, they're not trying to take down each other's things. They're just fighting over territories. That's what it is. So let me see. We would have known that in 1991 was the death of the King of the South because it's all about spheres of influence. Do you guys understand what that means? Because I had to think back for a minute. Because we used to say, since the verse 10 in Daniel 11 says, overflow and pass over. And we said, oh, okay, So you just came to the neck and you destroyed all of this, but you left the head. So the king of the south never died. And so of course we should have known that the king of the south would come back on the scene because we never killed him. And that was a huge revelation that, oh, Russia is back, and we haven't even been looking at Russia. And our whole reason for why we were saying that is because, they left the head, it was still alive. But actually it did die. It had, if you look at our Daniel 11:40 part A and part B, you have a deadly wound that's delivered, right? Wound. And then you have a death, but then you have a resurrection. And you have the same thing happen with Russia. It was a deadly wound and it was a resurrection. Because it doesn't matter if Russia survived. If the country of Russia survived, that doesn't mean that the head survived. It's not about the country of Russia. It's about the spheres of influence. So when Russia lost all of its spheres of influence, it did die. That was its death, because this is the only thing that matters. It's not your physical land or your physical territory where you are. It's about who you have in your pocket. There's countries like whatever their name is, like little Tahiti Island. No, not that's an island. Different countries, insignificant little countries. They exist. They have their land. They have their territory. Does anyone care about them? No. Because the only thing that makes you a global super power is your presence all over the globe in different countries, right? And there's people who were trying to say that Russia wasn't really a global superpower, even though Putin was thinking he was, because they don't have a presence everywhere. Well, now they do. They're in the Middle East, they're in Asia, they're in Africa, they're in South America, they're in the Arctic, they're in Europe. They have a global presence everywhere. So they are a global superpower now, and they are what's holding back the US. So when you lose all your spheres of influence and all you have is your little country and your territory, you are as one dead, basically. Anyways, I hope that clears that up, because I had a moment. I had to think about it. And the other thing we would have also known is that they start off as allies, because we weren't seeing that either, that the US and Russia started off as allies. And what shows us that is World War II with Stalin and Hitler, right? So let's see. We looked at that. So both perspectives are accurate, and we have a fuller picture with all of them. And then we have another perspective also here. Let's see. We're going to go to Poland. So here you have another perspective that shows a similar situation. You have Hitler. I'm just going to put Hitler for H for Hitler and S for Stalin. The king of the north and the king of the south, they're in an alliance. And the king of the north goes to take a country. And he takes this country called Poland. But it's not just Poland. You also have France and Britain, who said that they were going to protect Poland. And they said that if Hitler was going to go take Poland, that it was going to start a huge war. And so Hitler got into an alliance with the king of the south, specifically. We're going to look at that specifically, so that he could take Poland. And you have here, I'm going to put the names down because I think it helps everyone to know who we're talking about. So you have Trump and Putin come into an alliance so that Trump can come here and take Poland, or the executive branch, because what is the branch of the government, if we're going to say this is 3 branches, that he took quickly? It was the executive branch. So you have another witness. And another part of the story that it shows us is that when he took Poland, it started a prolonged war on the Western Front. It didn't just happen in a day. And this is another reason why we need this another perspective, because in Pyrrhus, that was horrible. That was bad. I don't know, just need this. Okay. So in Pyrrhus time, you had Ipsus. Now let's go to Heraclea, Asculum, Beneventum. These are all just one day or a couple day little battles, okay? And then people leave and you have a winner, and that's the end of that. It's just one day. But that's not how it happens in our time. Nothing is one day. It's not a hot war. Hot wars don't work like that. I mean, what is it? Even in Germany's time, the hot war, the way it still wasn't like that. You had maybe different little events here along the way, but it was a long, drawn out war because the weapons are more sophisticated, the way you can battle is more sophisticated, so strategies become more sophisticated. And even though you won a little battle here, really it's actually happening everywhere, all over the place, all the time, in many different ways. So you have to do a huge, huge effort to actually completely win the war and quench the enemy's fight, or what is it, attempts at winning or whatever. So it's a long, drawn out war. The more technology seems to advance, the longer wars seem to take. It seems to be, I don't know. But you can't use Pyrrhus's time for that. You have to use World War II for that. That's what shows us the long, drawn out part of the war. Okay. How about now? Do you guys have any questions now, or is it still clear? I'm going to take that as it's a clear. Okay. We're going to look at our reform line now, which I don't think I have a thing for that. So I'm going to add a page real quick. Yeah, clear. Thank you for the help, Sister Debbie. Okay, so we're going to look at our reform line, and we're going to try to understand what's going on with the Nethinims, because that becomes the majority of this section of the majority of this video is all about the Nethinims and well, it's the Battle of Heraclea and the Nethinims also, but it's something we need to get in our heads, that the Nethinims, all they have is external events, nothing else but external events. So you don't need, it's not mandatory to have an internal prophecy to be able to see this, because the external events are also helping. So they're doing a work also. And the Nethinims have their own little prophet, which I never would have thought who that would be, but that's very interesting what you pointed out. Okay, so in our reform line, we're going to take it from 2014. Where am I? Okay. And we're going to have ourselves some 2016 over here, a little bit of 2018. Let's do this. Okay. So for us, 2016 is Concord. We're going to put this here. This is Concord. And what is it for the Nethinims? Do you guys know? I'm going to ask you because I want to see if you know, if you're keeping track of what's going on. What is 2016 for the Nethinims? Anyone want to take a guess?
You're plowing?
Is it their plowing? Okay. But if I did this little dotted line, let's go based off of the little dotted line. What is 2016 for them?
Increase of knowledge.
Increase
Right.
of knowledge. Yeah.
Okay. So in 2016, Nethinims, they have an increase of knowledge, and they need to be able to understand all of everything that's going on, and they need to do it just based off of the events that they're seeing. Okay, so you can't say that it's only an internal message that does the work. They have to see it all without prophecy and based only on 2 streams of information. So the Nethinims are literally right now actively, they have been passing their waymarks all along the way just based on external events. So we have to keep that in mind continually, because this is what's happening, that I don't think we're realizing it, the unique situation that the priests are in. Because you have the priests, and I'm not trying to make any like social order or class or anything here, but this is the weird situation that the priests find themselves in, right? You have the Levites over here, and they're internal, right? And you have the Nethinims. And this is just how I think about it. This isn't something she put out there. This is just how I've been thinking about it and wondering about it, okay? And this is external. The Levites, I don't know if it's something that they see in SDA and outside. I think they also have to see an internal and external, because they don't know this message either, and all they can see is SDA. I think they're also going based off of external events. See? What do you guys think? Because I'm wondering now.
I think
We're
both.
also going to see what happens to us going forward as well.
I think it's a mix of the two, the internal and external.
Yeah.
Right,
see it
right now though. I'm asking right now in their time.
right now.
Yeah.
The external.
I think external, yeah.
External. Yeah.
Okay. Because I know in the future we end up being lifted up as a ensign, so they see that. But so they're external right now, and they're external right now. Well, their events are external also. So priests have this situation where Levites right now, they have to see the 2 streams in the external. Nethinims right now have to see the 2 streams in the external. Priests right now have to see 2 streams in the external, and they have to see 2 streams in the internal. So we're in the really weird and really difficult position of having to look at it all at the same time in a fast space, at a high pace in a short space of time. And we have to see internal and we have to see external. We have to see internal so we know what's happening with us and our movement, and to know how we're going to help the Levites in the future, and how to be good helpers for them, good servants to help them become who they need to be. And then we have to know the external so that we could be useful to the Nethinims when it's time for us to help them and give them the message, so that we don't mess up getting helped over to them. So we have to know both of these right now to be able to help both of these 2 groups. But right now, and I'm pretty sure that's what I was thinking too, is they're both going off of external events. That's all they have right now. So it's a really difficult and stressful situation that we're kind of in. And this is why it's so hard, because we have to have our brains literally juggle. We have to constantly juggle a million different ideas, like constantly, all the time. And it's not easy, but it is extremely important. And God does different things like these models, these patterns that help stick this information in our brain. So we have to be learning this stuff all the time.
Can you refresh my memory what the 2 streams internally are? I don't know, I'm gapping on that right now.
Yeah, the enemies. So internally, you have, SDA and this movement on one level, And then we've had in the past, in this movement, we've had enemies like Tree of Life Ministry, and then True Priest.
Wheat and tares, and then
yeah, and we still do, because we still say that there's Judases in here right now, right? But it's a wheat and tear kind of a situation. So it all depends on the perspective. Oh man. So but yeah, so it's still, we're still gonna have that until the final moment. I think we're still gonna have them until we actually have to go give the message to the Levites. I think the tares, there's something about that work of actually doing that and being humble enough to do this intense labor to help these people. That seems to never be something that from what I've seen in Paul's time and everything, for them to be able to make the sacrifices necessary to do that kind of work. So there's going to be a really clear split of that, and not too far away, I don't think. Let's see here. And that's another thing we just had. The other situation is, here's another perspective. It doesn't have to be people, the two streams, right? That doesn't have to be that, because in our brains, we have, in our priest brains, we're still trying to get rid of Protestant understanding, which is an external, and then true understanding. Because there's these ideas that we have where, using God to push our beliefs on people in the world, right? So we're gonna do the whole thing that we've been dealing with racism and sexism, and like establishing the specifically anti-gay marriage laws and things like that. So we have like a Protestant understanding that, without even realizing, we were doing a union of church and state. And so we have to get rid of that in our minds and go on the true stream of information here. So there's a lot of breaking with the brains that
you can throw conspiracy theories
yeah
Protestant as well, because this perspective that we all had in regards to the papacy in comparison to the Protestant churches, and you know what the Pope's doing and everything like that, which strangely enough isn't supposed to be our focus right now. And it was kind of always the focus, you know, what was the Pope doing? What was the Pope doing? But we were disregarding where the problem actually lied, and it was within Protestant America.
Yeah, on that note, I think Tyler, I'm going to actually deviate for a quick second and just show you guys this, because it helped me understand things a lot. He did a really basic model, and I'm going to follow suit because I'm not feeling too fantastically artistic right now. Let's just have these two squares. This is where he was talking about when the United States was still a colony of Great Britain. They hadn't declared independence yet. They were having this issue of taxation without representation, and they were really sick of it. So they were a colony. And as Tyler put it, which I thought was a really good way to put it, is because they're a colony and they can't be independent, they might be all the way over here on a different continent, but they are chained to the beast here. Okay? And the thinking here was always a top-down structure. You had God in heaven, and then your king was God on earth to you, to the people. And then the people were the lowest rung, and they had to do everything the king did, and the king said to do, and the king's word was law. This is what helped the people. This is what gave the people power and help, and without this, the people have nothing. This was the thinking that had been here for 1,260 years, and this was being used to trample on the people and destroy them and constantly like harass them all the time. And it was putting people in subjugation. There was all this racism and misery and slavery, not just of like Black people, but it was, I mean, I've looked at documentaries of London back in the day and how absolutely horrifying it was for the peasant class. Like, they were literal garbage.
Yeah, they had a real class system there that was pretty messed up.
Yeah, it was so messed up. So you have little old USA coming over here, springing up out of the ground, and they get this idea that no, actually the people are the powerful ones here. The people are on top of the government. The government is like down here. Because the people, it's not the king that God cares about. God doesn't care about the king. God cares about the people. That's who's important to God. And that's what they used to give a breakup letter to the to Great Britain. They said, God doesn't care about the king. The king was supposed to be there to help the people, not to destroy them, because God actually cares about the people, not the government. The government is just there to keep order and to help the people, right?
Yeah.
That's the actual order.
The style of government that they wanted to try, you know, the whole thing about getting away from these old systems of monarchies and you know, class rulership and all this stuff. They flipped it all upside down, put the people on the top.
Yeah.
You know, Sister Adriana, if I could just comment that poor white trash
Yeah.
was an expression used in the early days of the United States. So
Yeah.
you're correct with the comment. You know, it definitely blacks
Mm-hmm.
being brought in from Africa. That was definitely horrific slavery. But the Irish, you know, there were a lot of immigrant Caucasian that were also, in a sense, enslaved and referred to, as I say, poor white trash, you know, all sorts of different terms. So it was a mindset that was not sanctioned by God.
I think the big difference is that the Europeans had an opportunity to leave that behind and come to America and make something new. Whereas the Black people from Africa, they weren't brought by choice, and they weren't coming to something that had any positive outcome for them.
Yeah.
So they were going from one, you know, situation to another situation. Whereas even though, like, when you think of the Irish immigrants, when they came into America, they were treated as subclass as well, but they still had lots of opportunity, and all, you know, there were land giveaways and all these things like that you could go because they just wanted to populate the place.
Yeah.
But the Black people, when they came, and that was well after, I think, there was no opportunity for them. They were not even human.
Yeah, the immigrants that came here were coming here to escape a bad situation. The Black people were being here to be brought to a bad situation, and they were being taken from their regular situation.
Exactly.
Yeah. But in the United States right now, it's low-income places anywhere, and I don't know if you guys ever looked at Appalachia or Appalachia. I don't know how you say it, but it's more towards the East Coast. There's a really low-income coal mining area there where their only joy, I cannot believe this, but this is literally a thing that they look forward to, is Mountain Dew. That's like sugar. It makes them happy, and that's about all they can afford, and that's about all they have. That or prescription medications or something.
Mm-hmm.
None of them. They can't afford a dentist. They can't afford anything. Nothing. Like, they are dirt poor. It was one of the most heartbreaking things I've ever seen. These kids, when they are born, and they literally have no hope in life. They have nothing. Their school system is garbage. They just can't. The horrific things happening on this planet, wherever you go, it's bad. But to get back to this chart, because I wanted to, yes. So Lisa, yes, always the United States with the immigrants, they treat them like slaves. So you always have the issue. Even in this time, Tyler was talking about, there was issues of immigrant and low cost labor that was coming in across the border. They had that even in that time, and they still have it to today. Whenever there is a human being that has to depend on a person in this country for help, for some reason people think it's okay to immediately take advantage. And you have all these people, I think it's interesting because the first place they hit is the Bible Belt, because that's closest down there to where all the immigrants come in. And they hit this Bible-believing people that say, hey, don't take advantage of the poor and helpless in their Bibles. And the first thing they do when the poor and helpless come across that border is they take advantage of them. So this is a really horrible thing in God's eyes. And here's the problem. You had this chain that the United States was trying to break, and they were trying to use God to do it, saying, we observe a God that's higher than you. He gave everyone unalienable rights. The people are the ones in charge, not the government and all this stuff. So they had a huge breakup with the United Kingdom. But let's redraw this in a different perspective. Because this was a literal event. So let's make this what's happening with us in our movement right now, because it's the same thing. We have an issue with Protestant understanding. And then we don't even have a name. What do we even call us? I'll just say the movement. Is over here, and what we're trying to do is we're trying to break up with Protestant understanding, but it's a mental war game. It's through these two streams of information. That's the other thing. You have one stream of information here that believes that this person is on top and everyone else is subjugated underneath. You have this other stream that says, no, it's all about freedom. This stream, Great Britain, and not just Great Britain, the papacy beast of this time. What is one of the things that Sister White, and it's actually become a huge issue in our time right now with conspiracy theories. Conspiracy theories. That was holding back another reason why it was called the Dark Ages. There was no light, there was no enlightenment, there was no knowledge. It's because of this one word. I'm pretty sure I remember her using, a number of people did. I think the Martin Luther and Wycliffe and then did. It's superstition. Stition? I don't know how to spell it. How do you spell that? It's another T, isn't it? So I'm going to just do this. You guys know what I'm talking about. Superstition. And it's not just any superstition. It's religious superstition. This held everyone in such a state of stupidity for so long, and people weren't able to make medical advancements, scientific advancements, any kind of advancements in life, because this held the minds with a chain. You couldn't move out of that, because all you thought is, oh, if you do this, you're going to hell, or if you do that, you're going to purgatory, or you need to do this. It literally encompassed your entire life and your entire being, because this is how these types of tyrannical governments keep control, is by keeping everyone else stupid from you. And they took away the Bible so people couldn't learn any of their knowledge of freedom and any of these things. So you had everyone being kept in this superstition state of mind. And so you had people believing that out of a pile of clothing, that's what actually gave birth to rats, because that's where they would see rats come out of piles of dirty laundry. You had people who wouldn't take certain medications because they were scared, because it was ungodly and it was unnatural, and that's not okay to do that kind of thing, and that's all wrong and all these things. And whenever there was a plague, like in the UK, it was never, the rich people were able to remove themselves from the situation and go to the countryside. The people that always end up suffering from these conspiracy theories are the lower income, the poor people that are jammed together in low income living situations, smushed together like sardines, where plague and death and problems spread consistently all the time. So we're having to undergo that same break, because Protestants now have the same issue with superstition. And we have it in our heads also, and we have to break that chain. So it's like the same thing that happened in 1798 is happening again. So I don't know if that helps anyone, but it helped me to think of it that way. Let's see, John says they stopped progressing with the light, set up camp. So what camp? What camp are you talking about? The Jews had to keep moving while in the wilderness before entering Canaan. They were in a movement. Yes. Okay.
I was talking about the Protestants where they because that's where the religious superstition came in. They were entitled to be in a certain amount of darkness because they were coming out of the darkness.
Yeah.
But they stopped at a certain place when God wanted them to keep going. He wanted them to keep moving. And they set up camp, and they basically made their denominations and established their beliefs and said, that's it. But
right.
It was progressive, and they had to keep following along with it.
Yeah, but it kills a lot of people, certain things. Like, I was looking at something not related to any of these things, but yeah, and Jeff said that different Bible versions confuse people, different translations confuse them. Lisa says poor food, lots of stress, lots of amusement keeps people stupid and preoccupied. This is Satan's tactics right here. Satan's tactics. And so when you read Great Controversy 38, where Ellen White is talking about the Revelation, the angel of Revelation 18, saying that we're going to go give God's message to the world of Babylon being fallen, with the added information of all the evil things that came into it to destroy it. What came into Protestantism is all these ridiculous beliefs and what they've been doing: racism, sexism, slavery, destroying people, taking advantage of immigrants, all these horrible things, these superstitious nonsense. This is what has been making them destroy the people in this country. So this is the kind of stuff we're going to have to go give them the message of. This is the information of the added information of the things that have been happening and coming into Protestantism that made it fall and turned it into this horrible monster. So this is why we also need to know this stuff and why we need to follow these events, because this is going to be part of our message.
Just a quick comment, Sister Adriana.
Mm-hmm.
I know as you were talking in terms of the Protestant understanding, one of the thoughts that came to my mind was of the condescension, and the superiority and the righteousness, the self-righteousness, definitely righteousness by works. But in the South, many of the slave owners did have that kind of a altruistic, self-righteous kind of attitude. Some of them genuinely believed they were bettering the lot of the slaves, and that they were giving them, in a sense, a better life than if they'd just been left in Africa. And how often up in Canada we can hear that in reference to the Native people here, that many times some of the atrocities that occurred, as Catholicism and Anglicanism spread, and so on, and the abuse. Many times it was that same feeling of superiority. The white race is superior. Eugenics, Hitler's famous raison d'etre. And many times it's a case of that superiority just flavoring everything that's done, even legislation.
Yeah, exactly. That's why, I don't know if you watched, but those congressional hearings, that is the reasoning that they use to separate the children from their parents at the border in those camps. They said that this will help them to understand not to come here, and it's better for them because these coyotes are all taking advantage of them, and these people are raped when they're trying to cross the border. We're actually saving lives by doing this. And this guy that was there with this panel, he believed in it. He's like, you don't see what I do every day. This is helping people. What we're doing is a preventative measure. We're going to save so many lives. You don't understand. And meanwhile, you have all these kids that are just like, I mean, you're destroying their psychology for the rest of their lives. And they don't see it. So
self-justification, justifying what we're doing,
and
it's another way of inverting blame. all their fault. We have to treat them this way.
And
Yeah,
it's just not it's not just here. We're professing that globally. We are the mighty, you know, and throughout the world we're seen as this big well, now we're looking like a bully because of our president, but you know, we're leading in everything, you know, music, uh, politics, money, society, you know.
yeah.
We lead the you know, a lot of countries look to us for what's hip and all that good stuff.
Yeah. But I'm hearing a weird echo. I don't know. It's probably a wave of internet failure, but anyways. So with all that out of our systems, sort of, I'm going to get back to our study because that was a lot of time that was spent on that. And I'm going to keep going with this study until you guys tell me to stop. I just have a couple more pages here is all. So if you want to just stick it out, it's already almost 8 o'clock, but it shouldn't go too much longer now. So, okay, we're going to get back to Ipsus and Heraclea. So, oh, here's what I wanted to go to. We're going to go look at, if you guys remember this big picture back in the day, because she keeps going back and forth between these, and it's really starting to confuse me. So she keeps talking about August 1940, which is right here. Where's my little hand? It's right here. And then Heraclea and Raphia and Ipsus. So I just want to make sure you know and have this in your mind. This is what we're going to be looking at because you have basically what we're going to look at is the Battle of Heraclea and how it happened. Heraclea is August 1940. You have Heraclea here, and you have August 1940 here. So this is what we're looking at. And why we're looking at this is because you have trade was suspended here. This is where the relationship between the King of the North and the King of the South went south. Well, it went bad. Let me just not confuse Souths now. And here, when you have an alliance with Hitler and Russia, this is the Battle of Ipsus. So we go here. So you have Ipsus, then here you have Heraclea, and then after Heraclea, you have Raphia. So remember those three in a row. They're all on different lines, but they're consecutive. And August 1940 is also Loud Cry in 2018. Let me do a little drawing so that we don't get too confused. Oh, that's so bad. Okay, but it's fine. So we're going to say Ipsus. And Ipsus was also, what was Ipsus? Good question. Ipsus was, okay, that's what I thought. Ipsus is 2016.
Oh, sorry. I was going to say 301.
Yeah.
Wrong line.
You are correct, but yeah, so Ipsus is 301, but it's 2016. And we're going to say Heraclea is also, it's 20, right? It's 2018. Just a second. Loud Cry, yeah, should be, yes. Loud Cry, we're gonna say yes. And yeah, because 2016, because 2014, yeah. Okay, 2016, 2014, Heraclea. And this is also August of 1940, the month, the whole month time period of August. Their whole relationship broke down. And then 2019, you also have Raphia. So this is the order of events, okay? Ipsus in 2016 is here. August 1940, 2018, Heraclea is here. Raphia in 2019 is here. And the reason why we're looking at it is because here at Ipsus, we see an alliance and everything is good. Here at Heraclea, the alliance is bad. It's broken. And here at Raphia, what she seems to be stating is, this is, let me see if I have it here. Yes. So here's the issue. This is what we're looking at. This is the Western Front. This is war on the Western Front. And this is war on the Eastern Front. And what we're saying is that these two look the same. And we're going to look over the line of events that happened to get this battle happening. It got the Battle of Heraclea fought, and we're going to look at the mode of warfare and how that battle happened. Because the same way, the same kind of events that happened for Heraclea to happen is what's going to happen for Raphia to happen. And this is why she says that this set of events is going to start repeating itself, and this is why we need to watch external events, okay? So we're going to look in...
Sister Adriana?
Yes.
Elaine just put in the chat, possibly should we open up Sabbath?
Sure. Would someone like to open up for us? Or I can if it's fine, I can.
I'll open up.
Okay.
Dear Lord God, your people come before you at the beginning of your Sabbath, your holy rest day. And we come humbly at your feet, Lord, and we pray and we ask that you bless us on your Sabbath day. We also hope and pray that you open up our understanding that we may take in all this light that's before us. And we also ask for your strengthening as the times get harder and the things get more complicated. We ask for your holy presence on the Sabbath day, and we ask for a large portion of your Holy Spirit. And we lay all these prayers at your feet, Lord, and we pray in your holy and mighty name, in the name of Yeshua, in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Amen. Okay, so we have the Battle of Heraclea, and so we're going to look at events that happened on this timeline that brought in Heraclea and how all of that worked. But before we do, let me just remind everyone. So the Battle of Heraclea, it was the king of the north went against the king of the south, but the king of the south wins, okay? So what we're saying with that is Trump goes against Putin, but ultimately Putin wins. And if you guys remember, what is it? The Battle of Heraclea and the time of Pyrrhus. Let's go back to that. Where's Heraclea? I passed it. It's okay. Heraclea was, Pyrrhus went to help Tarentum, and he was getting Tarentum ready. But what happened is Rome came against Pyrrhus before he was ready, before he was expecting it. Pyrrhus, the king of the south, Putin, isn't expecting this advance coming from the north. It's sudden. But the south fights it and wins it, okay? So keep that in mind while we're looking at this history here, because that becomes important. First, let's go to World War II. So they have three parts to their pact. The first one is non-aggression. This is what helped Hitler go. This is World War II. So this is what helped Hitler go after Poland without the fear of having also war on the east, not just war on the west. The next one was spheres of influence. They split Europe. Influence. And then the third one was economics. in World War II, what happened is their relationship is good. It's an alliance at Ipsus. They're friends, but it goes south. And the reason it goes south, the reason why it's stated is in history is because they were having issues over the Balkans and how they were splitting them up. So we have the spheres of influence. And then there was issues with Germany's payments. Okay. And so these are the two that are the problem in this battle, because they were having these problems, and the problems ended in August 1940. This is where their relationship was being broken down. And that's also Heraclea. So now we're going to look at how that happened. Okay. So in 2016, Trump is elected. And then in 2017, Trump signs an executive order. This is order number 13800. This executive order is for strengthening the cybersecurity of federal networks and critical infrastructure. And this is the order. This is the order that starts this whole chain of events. It causes this whole shenanigans to happen here. And it's for strengthening and helping cyber defense and infrastructure. Why? You already know why he would want to do that, because he knows how Putin works. So remember always that Hitler and Stalin were ideological enemies. They only came together for logistical purposes, but they are ideological enemies, okay? So when you see Trump doing something against who you thought was his best friend, it's not that he's his best friend. It's just that they were always enemies. They just had to combine to achieve this one right here, okay? So to July 2018, there's a meeting in Helsinki. And here you see them as friends. They're very happy with each other. They're friendly. They're very cordial. Okay. And this is that meeting where Trump starts bashing on all his allies. And you have John McCain making a statement like, no prior president has abjectly abased himself before a tyrant like this. And everyone pretty much agreed with that statement. So we're looking at the relationship. So we're looking at the Trump and Putin relationship, okay? We're looking at how the relationship is progressing down this line. So September 21st, Trump puts out a national cyber strategy. He wants to secure cyber networks from agencies such as the IRA. And you guys know the IRA is Internet Research Agency. It's also, I think, an acronym in US somewhere, but I'm not sure for what. I thought it was something for guns, but I'm pretty sure I'm wrong or something. I don't know. Ally with one another, though really enemies, like the Sadducees and Pharisees to entrap Christ. Oh yeah, Debbie, that's a good point. I never thought of that. So you have the Sadducees and the Pharisees. They don't like each other, but they come together to entrap Christ. That's an interesting point. Okay. Yeah, it's an internal, huh? Whoa, that makes you wonder about, for us, what that's going to look like. So who in the Adventist church are enemies, but they come together against us? That's an interesting idea. We'll see how that goes. So the national cyber strategy is to stop agencies like the IRA. It is what he says in this document for this strategy is the rise of the internet and the growing centrality of cyberspace through all the facets of the modern world correspond to the U.S. as the world's lone superpower. So he took everyone back to 1989 to 1991 and the rise of information. the information age, and he's saying that this correlates with the United States. These two go hand in hand, and we're going to continue to strengthen this relationship at any cost and to keep people from undermining it, right? And so this is the first strategy that they've had in 15 years, because the last one was in 2003. It was during the time of the Iraq War. And that one was solely for defensive purposes. So that strategy stated that if someone were going to attack, we were going to defend ourselves. This one is different in that it actually says we get to act offensively and cause attacks ourselves also. And what else is stated, what he calls out in this report, he says that Russia, China, Iran, and Northern Korea have been taking out attacks in the cyber world that they would never have dared to do in other modes of battle anywhere else. And they've been at the forefront of undermining our democratic elections and words, structure, whatever, what have you. So the first one he names in that was Russia, though. So they're the worst player in all of this. So he never attacked Russia like this before, right? Up until now, they've been buddies. He always defended Russia. Anytime there was a press conference, someone asked him negative about Russia, he would defend Putin and Russia. But for the first time in this document, you have this attack on Russia. So we're going to note that. Let's see. We'll call this is called Cyber Network. No. This is just the cyber stress. So we'll just say National Cyber Strategy. Okay. And then October 28, you have this guy, John Bolton. He wants war with Iran really bad. And if you think about who Iran is in the pocket of Russia. So he hates Russia. So you know where John Bolton slides on this, right? John Bolton and Putin meet in Moscow. And Putin, this is what Putin says. So you just had Trump call out Russia as being an interferer with the election and with our democratic institutions. And this is what Putin says to Bolton then. He basically says, I don't think we've had this really good relationship in Helsinki. In Helsinki, everything was fine. And now I'm hearing of all these things that you're saying and you're doing. They're without basis, and I can't consider them friendly. I don't understand what happened between us. Everything seemed so fine. And now you're doing this. And I don't think that this is okay or friendly. So you have Putin noticing, right? So Putin, he notices that some not friendly things are happening from the King of the North. So the alliance is starting to break down here. Okay. October 31, John Bolton says, we are right now undertaking offensive measures to safeguard the midterm elections. You guys were talking about the midterm elections. October 31, you had the midterm elections, and John Bolton says we were undergoing offensive strategy to safeguard those elections, okay? So USA, what they did, what we find out later that they must have been doing and operating is they were shutting down the IRA. There was an attempt by the IRA to get into work mode to start interfering in the midterm elections. But these offensive strategy measures that they put into place completely shut them down. And so you have now midterm elections go off, and they go off pretty smooth without any problems because they were able to stop the IRA from interfering. So everything worked out then. And then, and I didn't add this in there. Okay, there's another history in here that we have missed. Actually, I don't have to do that. I have technology. What am I doing? No. Where's the thing? Let's just do that. Ah, okay. Where is it? So you have November 9 to 11, 100-year anniversary of World War I ceasefire. Trump and Putin were supposed to meet in France. And Trump canceled it. Why do you think he would have canceled it? He just had these offensive measurements that he did against his buddy. And of course, he's not going to want to go face to face with him. So, November 16, Trump uses the executive order and that strategy, the national cyber strategy that he founded, and he creates a new agency. This agency is within the Department of Homeland Security. And I forget what the acronym stands for, but it's in the notes. CISA. It's basically, again, for the cybersecurity of the United States and its infrastructure. Okay. So November 25, we have this situation with Ukraine and Russia. And this is all from here on out, right? This is 2018, even to here. So Ukraine and Russia. And what happens is you have this strait in the Black Sea, I believe, where Ukraine has been used to taking its ships. It's a part of the Russian territory, but for very, very, very long time, ages really, Ukrainian ships have been able to float through there or go through that strait as long as they asked Russia for permission. And everything went fine. But on this day, for whatever reason, the Ukrainian ships decided not to ask for permission. And Russia fired on them and took hostage their crews and took their ships. And this escalated the situation between them so high that Ukraine went into a state of emergency, and they were expecting an immediate hot war with Russia. And it was like a huge situation. So November 29, you have the G20, and you have Trump on Twitter saying that because of this Ukrainian situation, the meeting is canceled. So again, he cancels his meeting with Putin. And now we're going to skip down to December 29. December 19. What happens in December 19? We see a huge about face. So you see this whole relationship falling apart, and you see Trump taking all these steps against Russia right here. And now you have Trump saying that all troops are coming out of Syria. Half troops out of Afghanistan. And you have sanctions lifted on Oleg Deripaska. I think that's how you spell it. I'm probably wrong. It's fine. Okay, so what just happened? Syria, we know from last study, is the proxy war. And for it to continue to be a proxy war, for Russia not to win there, American troops have to be there. But Trump just took all American troops out of Syria. So now he basically gave Syria to Russia, right? And the reasoning that he gave was that he said that ISIS was beat, and ISIS is not beat. They still have like 30,000 troops there in Syria and Afghanistan. They're not beaten yet, but that was just like an excuse that he used. Which part of this situation here does that fit? It fits the spheres of influence, right? So we have part 2. And then sanctions being lifted on Oleg Deripaska, that is going to be under economics, okay? And the reason why is you can't put sanctions on Putin. It's really hard to pin them down on him. But the way you put sanctions on him is you put sanctions on his wallet, basically. And his wallet are his oligarchs. They do everything he wants. They try to anticipate whatever Putin wants. That's what they try to do to make him happy. And Oleg Deripaska is his number one oligarch, his best buddy, like his number one cohort. And this guy is the one who does the IRA. And so all of a sudden, Trump lifts sanctions on him, and this is a form of payment to Putin. So you have economics, you have part 3 right there. So both of these just happened, okay? So this was all Heraclea. This was all the Battle of Heraclea in 2018, and their relationship fell apart. But you know what happens in Heraclea. Trump went against Putin, but ultimately Putin wins. So here we go. Now you have in Heraclea, Putin wins. He gets everything he wants. And then in December 20, he has his once a year 4-hour press conference where he tells the world his feelings. Basically, all the press get to ask him their questions, which are heavily regulated by him. And what he does is he completely lavishes on Trump and says, oh, he's great. Why doesn't America listen to him? Look at all these good things he did. He lifted sanctions off my friend. He took all his troops out of Syria. They never should have been there anyways. And he says all these wonderful things about Trump, and basically completely lavishes praise on him. So now their relationship is good again, okay? So we went through all these events, and so what we figured out then is that at the G20 summit, he said he canceled the meeting on Twitter, but he ended up having a secret meeting with Putin. We don't know what was talked about there because there's no translators, there's no records of it, there's no witnesses. But whatever was talked about doesn't matter because the result is right here. Putin got everything he needed, and he won Heraclea. The king of the north went against the king of the south, and the king of the south won. And the king of the north went against the king of the south unexpectedly because Putin is confused when this is happening. He's saying, why are you doing this? This is unfriendly. We had such a good relationship before. What's going on? Where is this coming from? So this is what happened. And this is why we have to be following current events, because in Japan, they just had a meeting recently this year, I think in July, and it went amazing, and they're big friends. But Raffia is the same battle. Raffia is, I think Raffia is, south this time, isn't it? Isn't it the south goes against the king? Yeah. And the south wins. So we have to be watching the news cycle because their relationship is good, but this time you're going to see Russia do events that are attacking the king of the north, and the king of the south is going to win. So we have to be watching how this gradual breakdown in their relationship is working, because there has to be a gradual breakdown because the relationship is good right now. So this is what we're looking at with the Battle of Heraclea. And let's see. Tez did something else that I don't understand, and I don't know what it is. So, but I can show you, and then maybe you guys can help. I can figure out where I am. We have, so you have November 1st, November 9, 2016. Okay. We'll say this is 2016. You have November 9. And this is the first election, and Trump wins. But Trump has to win twice, because on December 19, you have the second election. This one is for the people. This one is for the Electoral College. If the Electoral College chooses Hillary, then this was in vain. There was no point. It's not going to be Trump who's the president. It's going to be Hillary. But Trump won it twice. So Trump won the elections twice. She's calling this one Raphia. And then this Heraclea. And that seems backwards to me, and I'm confused, and I still don't understand why she did that, but that's there. And if you guys can figure it out, that'd be awesome. But what she's saying basically is 2 elections, and we find them both in 2016. He has to win both. If Clinton wins the Electoral College, then she would have won. Because the Western Front and the Eastern Front look the same, then the way Heraclea happened is how Raphia is going to happen. Oh, maybe that's what it was. The whole pattern is going to start again. I guess that's maybe why, is that Heraclea and Raphia look the same. Because again, one's the Eastern Front and one's the Western Front. So the Eastern Front and the Western Front look the same. And now we're at the last part, which is the methonyms. And this one was pretty interesting to me. So she was trying to mark some external and some internal events here that I'm still not 100% sure about, but what we're looking at is the methonyms. Let's do a little zoomy in-y. Okay. In 2004 is where they were supposed to wake up, and then you have a 10-year period to 2014, and 2014 is their time of the end. Okay. 2016 is their increase of knowledge. It's the election. And if it's an increase of knowledge, just the same way it was for William Miller in 1816 and 1818, he has everything in a capsule form, his message. So they have to have it here. And then 2018, everything is formalized. So the methonyms have to know everything. And they have to know everything that's going on solely based on external events. The only thing they have that's showing them what's happening is the 2 streams of information. And that is enough. And they don't have to have an internal message to understand what's happening. The external is doing the work for them. So what they're meant to see is the relationship between Trump and Putin. They also have to understand the spheres of influence. And they're also meant to see how Fox News operates the crisis on the Mexican border. So December 19 of 2018, it wasn't just what we were looking at. Some other things happened, the border wall and Fox News. Fox News controlled Trump's agenda, and it led to one of the largest government shutdown in U.S. history. So there's more things you can look at December 19 that happened. It was actually like a big deal. But anyways, so we're gonna mark September 21st and December 19, and then also internally here, we're marking October 13, and then also, she didn't put this here, but I'm going to put this here to help us. It's October 3. Because if we look at she said, if we look at Revelation 10, that angel, he has 1 foot on the land, and he has 1 foot on the sea, okay? So the message is spread to the world. So in October 3rd, you have the message given, the midnight cry message given at Arkansas, and October 13, you have it given in France. So the message is spreading across, right? Let's see. The other thing we're going to look at is 2004. 2004, if 2004 was meant to wake up the methonyms, right? What was it that happened here that was supposed to wake them up? What were they able to see? What external events? What had their events in a really encapsulated form? And it's a rhetorical question because I already have it written down in front of you, but I'm just going to read through this. So some of the things they should have seen were Russia and the Beslan school siege, Beslan school siege, when Putin takes the government of Russia. You have the Iraq War and you have the 9/11 history. But all of these things are encapsulated, and you have this in Fahrenheit 9/11. Where am I? Fahrenheit 9/11. And an interesting thing that she pointed out here that I never realized, I was but a wee sixth grader, I think, when this happened. When George Bush was elected the first time in the year 2000, I was 10 years old. So I wasn't paying attention to politics then, to say the least. So I didn't remember this. But he wasn't supposed to be president. He was not supposed to have won that election. So Bush, prophetically, we can see that George Bush Jr. wasn't supposed to be the president because of false smyrtus. He was an imposter. And I went to go watch that really quick because I never knew about that history, and I have to figure out what was going on there so I know what's going on. But George Bush, there was this huge scandal with Florida. Florida was the deciding state. So you had Al Gore, I'm going to spell this wrong, it's okay. And you had George Bush, and they were like in their 40-something percentiles, like 40, 48 and 40, I don't know, 48 something. But it was Florida that was going to break the tie between them. And what's interesting, what he does in this documentary is he says that every news network was saying that Florida they were going to say that Florida went for Al Gore, but Fox News said, no, it's actually for Bush. And Fox News, it's interesting that the person who called it for Bush, who said it was for Bush, and he called it incorrectly because they did a bunch of recounts and they all said that Al Gore won Florida, but no one wanted to listen. They pushed this down. It's horrible what happened. It was actually the Supreme Court, all his father's friends that picked Bush. It was not the country. The country actually voted for Al Gore. But at Fox News, the person who called the shot for Bush was Bush's first cousin. So it was a huge skerfuffle and a huge scandal I never knew about. But yeah, Bush wasn't supposed to be president. It was not supposed to be him. So you have Bush there, and you have this guy, Michael Moore, who has everything encapsulated in Fahrenheit 9/11 for the Nethinims. And then you go over here to this history, and you have Michael Moore coming in with Fahrenheit 11/9, and it plays September 21st. We had on the line. Where was it? What was September 21? The National Cyber Strategy. So it's a date that's important, is basically what she's saying. But September 21st, 2018. Oh, you scared me.
Sorry, the beginning of Heraclea.
Yeah, okay. So the beginning of Heraclea. That's right. So you have him, this movie is showing between September 21st and December 18, the day before December 19. So Fahrenheit 11/9. And if you look at the trailer, because I did look at that trailer really quick, he basically is showing that Trump never should have been president. And he said, towards the end, he literally says, Trump is the last president of the United States. And the moment he does that, he shows a picture of 9/11, and he has the letters invert to show 11/9. So you have our waymarks on our line of 9/11 and then November 9, 11/9. So the fact that you have an external and an internal for that is very, very something else. It's very incredible. But in that movie, he also talks about this person who's restraining Trump. And I've heard about her from my coworkers, and they said AOC, the AOC. They call her the AOC because she's apparently really amazing. She's super young. She's a year older than I am. And she won last year in a huge upset in the midterms, and she came into Congress. I think it was November 6th, she said, in that history there. And she's obviously on the Democrat side, but she's been a huge restraint on Trump. And she's been huge in speaking out against what's happening down at the southern border, and also women's rights and immigrant rights. And she's been huge on the climate change agenda. She's been big on the main things that we're concerned with right now that Trump is trying to shimmy around. She is a huge restraint on him, and she has a huge following. And one of my coworkers specifically was talking about her, and the reforms that she was calling for made so much sense that there's a huge following behind this young lady. And so she is a huge restraint on Trump. And Michael Moore mentions her in there. And let's see. So she pretty much stopped here. The other thing that's interesting about her is Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. She's born October 13. I don't know if that's it. Anyways, October 13, 1989. So she was pointing that out as a significant thing because she's born in the right time. No, she's younger, 1 year younger. Okay, because math, Adriana. Anyways, so Michael Moore, of all people, is the prophet for the Nethinims, believe it or not. Anyways, what was the other thing? This. So there's this picture apparently that's been going around on the chats. I'm assuming it's on WhatsApp, because I don't know what other chats there are. Maybe Facebook, I'm not sure. But someone posted this picture of before there was writing on it. It's basically, you have the left stream, you have mainstream, and you have the right. And it basically says, no, and this is okay in our movement. And she's saying that this has to stop because the mainstream isn't who we should be looking at. The mainstream tells you, yeah, Trump isn't great, but also these guys aren't great either. We'll just have a chance. It's fine. It's not as bad as it looks. We're gonna vote him out and everything's gonna be fine. So what she's pointing out is that they are a peace and safety message. So we cannot be listening to them. And the other problem is Michael Moore, the prophet for the Nethinims, is over here on the left side. So she's calling for people to stop hustling this picture around. Basically, it's not helping anyone. It's not 3 streams of information and the one in the middle is the best. It's only 2. There's only 2. You have Michael Moore on this side and you have Fox and conspiracy theories on that side. It's only one or the other. So yeah, that's what she was pointing out. And I think that's it. It was a lot of words, and I hope it helped somebody. I thought it was really interesting. Some of the things she pointed out that I hadn't seen before. So you guys can unmute now and give some thoughts. Oh yeah, Laodicea, Lisa. Yeah, midway. Yeah, because you're teetering on the fence. You can't be lukewarm. You can't be with both sides or with either side. You have to pick a side. So anyways, do you guys have any questions? I know I'm presenting, but even when I present, I feel like I talk a lot. Yeah, Judas. Yeah, because this is where Judas is. This is the stream of Judas. Thinks he can partake of both sides.
Sister Adriana, could I ask a question just generally not of your message tonight, just
yeah,
more picking brains?
Mm-hmm.
Is anyone familiar with The Family?
What family?
Well, it's a series online on Netflix, and Trevor Cook and Sharon Toombs mentioned it in our BC meeting on Tuesday night.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually started watching it there last night a little bit. And I think it's five segments, and it's dealing with the behind the scenes fellowship, the family, they call themselves, refer to themselves as, that are driving the agenda. And I believe it's a man, Dick Coe or Doug Coe, I think it was Dick Coe, that Bill Clinton, George Bush Sr., in whatever speeches, they sort of make mentions of, and want to thank, I think his name's Dick Coe, da-da-da. And the first segment dealt with actually a story of a young author who, as a young man, had ended up having a friend of his drop his fiance, leave his home, and suddenly end up over in California in this almost like a fraternity house of just guys with this great group, and and come and check it out sort of thing. His friend invited him, and he ends up he does go and he gets involved, becomes a part, but then he ends up writing 2 books later on after he gets out of the group. And it's all, they talk about Jesus, but it's all about a chosen group. Like it's a chosen group, chosen by God, and et cetera, et cetera. Anyway, as I say, I haven't even finished the section number 1. But I, partway along, I was sort of thinking to myself, does this fit in with conspiracy theories, or is this more the alternate story of what really is real?
You mean like a counterfeit?
Well, yeah, I mean, either it's going to be a counterfeit or it's going to be true. It'll either be the right stream or it'll be the wrong stream. And I just was wondering if anybody else had heard of it and or started watching it or had watched it all.
No, I've never heard of it or watched it or anything. I would just, if it's for you to watch it or not is fine. It's just I would be careful if it does go around the conspiracy theory side of it. We don't want to be spending time in that.
Right. Yeah. No, I'm not sure yet if it does.
Yeah.
But
because from what I've noticed in a pattern is, if it's outside of this movement, it is an external event. That's the truth. It's not an internal movement or anything, I don't think, like a religious type of other movement, because that would be like a contender, like a false contender. And what that ends up reminding me of is all the other false Christs that are around when Christ is trying to be on earth.
Well, and I believe the whole premise, what Trevor had said as a bit of a preamble, sort of introducing it, was dealing with the prayer breakfast phenomenon.
Yeah.
And that's sort of the theme of it, in a sense, and how all the powerful decisions are made at these prayer breakfasts. And they're influencing, like people in the family are influencing world leaders around the world. Is
this based off of real people?
Oh yeah, it's all the various senators and the presidents and the et cetera, and so on.
Yeah.
But that's it. I'm not sure I'll continue watching any more of it. But sort of like an insider's behind the scenes. And I mean, in that first segment, up to the point I saw, it definitely wasn't mentioning New World Order or anything like that. But
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, I was just wondering if anyone else had already seen it or parts of it or had heard of it or and wanted to weigh in. But
I don't know.
anyway, good advice though, Adriana. Thank you.
Yeah, I've been actually confronted with this situation also because you're on YouTube or you're on various places and you're trying to find information and different things pop out to you that make you think of our movement, and then you're like, well, which one is this a part of? Like, it doesn't say Democrat or Republican in the description or subscription title. How do I know how do I know which side this goes to? So we have to be really vigilant and really figure these things out. It's not easy at first, for sure. And
well, and you also toss in the whole time factor.
yeah,
I think all of us are aware rather, that there's only 24 hours in a day.
yeah,
and half of those, well, under half, I guess, but are supposed to be in sleep.
yeah,
So there is only so much time we've got for putting into, the research and the study and the, so you're right. We do have to be careful.
yeah. It's a lot. It's a lot of information in this movement, and it's really easy to feel like you've fallen behind. Like, I felt like I kind of caught up with this Alberta stuff. I thought I was getting it, but then there's so many videos in France that I haven't even touched yet beside what happened last week. So I'm feeling really overwhelmed right now, and I don't know how or what to do at this point. But, well, God has it all worked out. So he's working on all of us. So man, but that's the other thing that's difficult is I never ever get as much out of a video from just listening to it or watching it as I do from preparing it for Bible study. But if I had to prepare every single video for Bible study to be able to understand it, I wouldn't be able to do it. There's too many videos. I can't do it. So it's like you're stuck in the situation. But the only thing that I can see that God put into place to help all that is everyone else who now also has to put in the work and present the Bible studies, and then we help each other out that way. So this is God using each other to help each other not fall apart and still be able to gather all this information into our brains. So anyways.
If everybody just take sections and go through it systematically, even on their own, because you're only going to do so many that you're presenting.
Yeah.
And I know it takes a lot of time, but if you kind of purpose yourself to do one or two from a series and go through an entire series, go through weekly one or two of them, whatever time permits. And because I'm really getting a lot out of doing the Brazil classes the way we've done them.
Mm-hmm.
So just systematically doing something every week, purpose yourself to do something every week instead of just when your turn is up to teach. I think that would be, I know it might sound hard, but it's really beneficial because we're looking at whatever happens after November 9. We know that there's a period of time where we have to sort things out and get things right. He's giving us this time to now. That's what I see that he did when he pulled us out of Central. He's giving us this time now to go take this time systematically and do it. And so instead of looking at how big it is, just systematically do something every week.
Yeah. Yep. Okay. Well, it's about 9 o'clock almost, so I'm gonna pray, and then everyone who needs to go can go, and if you guys want to stay and talk, that's fine, but I'm probably gonna need to go, so let's go ahead and pray. Dear Heavenly Father, Lord, we thank you so much for the study we were able to have tonight. We thank you for all the information that you gave us. We thank you for the work that Sister Tess is doing and for all the information that you're giving us through her, Lord. We ask that you continue to be with her and Elder Parminder and Brother Tyler. Please be with them, and Elder Tabo and all the teachers in this movement. Help them, guide their minds, continue to strengthen them, and help them to not give in to tiredness, or help protect them from Satan's attacks also, because he's constantly trying to bring them down. Be with them in a mighty way, and help us also to be teachers, Lord. Be with us the Sabbath day. Help our studies tomorrow to be a huge blessing, and help us to do our best to draw closer and nearer to you and put all the world aside, and to just focus with our hearts and minds on you and on each other and in fellowship and in unity. We thank you for all the exercises and these truths that you give us, and every test of mercy that you give us continuously, Lord. We thank you for everything that you do for us, and we pray all these things in the Lord Jesus Christ's name. Amen.